And then to kick us off, I'm going to ask Mark to come off mute and come on. And Mark, you can take over from me when you're ready in PowerPoint. Mark's going to take us through just kind of a little bit of a level set on kind of where we're seeing healthcare in the era of AI. Take us through the agenda for what we'll have today, and then we'll each just kind of go through the topics that we've got prepped. Again, as we go, please drop questions in the chat. Andy and I will be moderating those, and the three of us will take turns as each one of us is speaking. So, Mark, you've got the floor.
Thanks, Nick, and thank you everyone for attending today. Really appreciate your time. Hoping this will be very valuable across any one of the elements of the healthcare industry, even beyond that. I've been somehow supporting the healthcare industry for about 27 years. What that kind of makes me old. But with that, I've seen a few things happen over time, and different changes that we've been able to incorporate into how healthcare is delivered, be that provider, payer, pharmaceutical, med tech, and these things continue to evolve. And AI, Copilot, really starting to give us opportunity to make significant changes and address some of the significant challenges that we have that are out there. So we do face lots of problems that are out there today. Demand for healthcare at its highest, staffing lowest. People are waiting. People are burned out. They have been. Even before COVID, people were reporting a lot of burnout. There's a lot of demand on people beyond just caring for the individuals that's why they got into this in the first place, or providing whatever that service is that surrounds those individuals. It's huge. As we proceed with this, hopefully we're going to start to see right now in the early days of the AI and Microsoft Copilot, some great ways we can even begin to just alleviate some of that, as well as ways we can start to leapfrog past just let's solve a couple little problems. Let's get into some of the bigger ones as well, that we can really start to embrace how we can influence these various aspects. So we have, this new reality of consumerization of care and experience for that. And you'll see just some like the generational differences that are out there, and probably experiencing this within your own organization and how you address your market. Worker capital optimization, even redefining the connections in this new age of this ecosystem that's out there. So as we look at these things, what do we need to do? We need to surface what we can't see. We need to automate what we can't stand. That can be a lot of different things, but automation, even pre-AI, I really love the Power Automate component of Microsoft 365 that let me just avoid clicks and things that I have to do in my day-to-day job. We can go so far beyond that now already, as well as even more with what's coming. So, and then there's things we can't miss. This is critical. It's critical to the people that we serve. We have an organization, its brand and its integrity. We have a regulated industry. We have to account for all of these things, so we can't miss. But we have to do this in a speed that is at scale, yet still allowing people that work within this to do their jobs without that burnout. That is a lot of the power behind this AI transformation that's coming, and what we hope to bring to you through this series of webinars over the next few months and beyond. So as we do this, we're going to look into a lot of things. There are a number of functions that are ubiquitous across any organization. Within the healthcare space, there becomes a lot of unique aspects to it as well. So we really want to be able to bring to life great ideas. And as we do this, we still will not have near enough time to go really deep into any one of these topics. So we're hoping that you have access to your Microsoft team. We have teams pretty much on any customer that is out there. If you don't know or can't find them, reach out to one of us here as the presenters, and we will help get you in contact. We want to help you be successful as the We are the ones that are helping those that are helping others, is kind of how I like to think about it. So you're the most important one to help the people that really need it. We want to help you be successful in that. So each month we'll have a relatively standing agenda, but this will be unique. So it will not be the same content replayed monthly. It will be new content every single month and hopefully continue to build on value back to you in your organization and in your role. So with that, we're going to dive right in here. I'm going to turn it over to Andy on productivity, and then we'll all switch back and forth as we walk through the various components of that agenda throughout. Highly encourage folks, use the chat, pop some questions in there. Whoever's not presenting will be answering as fast as we can, and hopefully everyone enjoys the show. So Andy, all yours.
All right, thanks, Mark. Well, as Mark mentioned, my name is Andy Morris. I am one of our co-pilot SMEs at Microsoft. I've been working with the healthcare industry ever since I've been here at Microsoft, since about 2018. Really passionate about everything that Mark was saying about helping our customers, helping you all help the people you're helping. So really excited about this opportunity to do more with you through Copilot. So as you saw in the agenda, my section here is about productivity. So I'm going to be going through some of sort of the basic things that you can do in Copilot to really save time and increase an individual's personal productivity. If we think of this session as kind of a crawl, walk, run, I'm the crawl. And then we're going to get to Mark and Nick to do more of the walking and the running. So if you're one of those organizations that are just kind of kicking the tires on Copilot, hopefully this will be helpful to you. And if you're a little more advanced, hopefully some reminders might be helpful as well. But before I jump into my demos, I did want to talk a little bit about something that has been recently announced over the past couple of weeks, and your account teams have probably been talking to you about it. But it's really a shift in the way that Microsoft is thinking about our strategy for AI. And really what we're trying to do is to help you build a future of work to empower every employee with a Copilot and transform every business process with an AI-driven agent. And that's where we've started to introduce a new product called Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat, which is a new way for every organization to quickly and securely scale AI adoption so that no employee is left behind, regardless of their Microsoft 365 licensing status. So what Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat does is it combines three valuable capabilities into one. So first, at its core, it's a free, secure, AI-powered chat powered by the latest models with broad knowledge pulled from both those AI models and the web. So in addition to that chat, we're also adding in the ability for people without a Copilot license to use agents. And agents provide a powerful way to automate business processes. Agents are accessed through the same intuitive chat experience. And agents come in different flavors, from free agents grounded in things like instructions and public websites or uploaded files, and they range up to paid agents that can access your organization's shared tenant data or third-party data. And Copilot Chat offers these paid agents on a metered basis, so you only pay for what you use. And finally, Copilot Chat offers robust IT controls, ensuring enterprise-grade security, privacy, compliance, and management. It provides the same level of security and privacy for chat as you get from M365 for your emails and your documents and your other things that are living in our cloud. So to sum it all up, you're getting the ability to provide AI to all of your to your entire organization and tailor it more toward your needs, toward the needs of each of the groups. One of the first things I hear about as I've been talking to my customers about this is the idea of using agents on a metered basis is a little bit scary for some organizations, but rest assured that those IT controls do allow you the flexibility to turn those things on and off and control those experiences and also control your budget at the same time. So to get a little bit of a sense for what this is going to look like, I've got a short video that we've released recently that's going to show you a little bit of the UI of what Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat will be. So you get a little bit of a sense of it. It's about a minute long, so we'll take a look at this really quick. All right, so you get a little bit of sense of what Copilot Chat's going to be all about, and I do see some questions coming in the chat there regarding some of the details of the IT controls and things like that. We do have information about that, and as Mark said earlier, please reach out to account teams on those things. We have definitely resources to bring in and have very detailed conversations on how that's all going to look for each of your organizations.
Oh,
now I
and
know our
just so,
video.
sorry, Andy, I'm going to interrupt you really quick. Just for quick housekeeping, too, we're not quite sure what questions we're going to get today. So we're capturing all these, and we have everyone's contact information since you're registered. So we'll also do a follow-up, so you have a copy of these slides, the videos, questions that we can't get to or that Microsoft hasn't announced something yet. Because the information is so new that we released last week on chat and agents, some of that we're still getting out from the engineering teams. So please, I like to say we reserve the right to be smarter tomorrow than we are today. So drop anything that you have. If we can't answer it today, we'll grab the follow-up and make sure we get it to you after the session. Thanks, Andy.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I was saying, I know we had a sales example in our video there, but one of the things that first came to mind as I was learning about Copilot Chat is healthcare organizations and some of the frontline workers. I could envision a scenario here where, you know, a nurse on a mobile device might be using Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat with an agent maybe reasoning over a policies and procedures SharePoint site to quickly look up information and answer questions around any policies or procedures that they might need to look up during their shift. So I think some great potential here to really expand AI to more people in your organization is coming very soon. But what we don't want to forget is that there's basically two experiences here, and it's important to understand the difference between Copilot Chat and Microsoft 365 Copilot, which I have a description of on the screen here. So Microsoft 365 Copilot still offers the best value, and we're continually adding features and functionality to Microsoft 365 Copilot so that it includes all the capabilities of chat and more. So in other words, it's your complete AI assistant for work. It provides far more capabilities and far more value. In addition to all the capabilities of Copilot Chat, it includes chat grounded in your tenant work data. It includes the ability to access and use agents without having to pay for that on a consumption basis. And it has all the personal assistant capabilities of Copilot, like Copilot in Outlook, Copilot in Teams, and Copilot in all of the other Microsoft 365 apps, which I'm going to show you a few examples of in a moment. And in addition, it comes with advanced management capabilities like SharePoint Advanced Management and Copilot Analytics, including the Copilot Dashboard and Viva Insights. And we'll be talking about all of those things more as we go. But what I'd like to do now is kind of jump over and start to do a couple of demos to show you kind of some basic productivity scenarios in Copilot. So what I've got on my screen right now is basically my Teams client. And what I wanted to do is start with one of our most popular use cases we see for Microsoft 365 Copilot. And that is using Copilot to summarize things you've missed, or using Copilot to quickly catch up on things that you might need to stay on top of, and thereby saving a lot of time. So the first thing I wanted to show you here is how you might use Microsoft Copilot to catch up on a Teams meeting that you might have missed. So here on my screen, I've got a meeting that I had with a group of team members, and let's say that I was not able to attend this meeting. So I'm going to go ahead and open this meeting up, and I'm going to check the recap. Now, when I look at the meeting recap, you'll see I've got a meeting recording. I've got some notes that were generated for me. And if I had the time, I could go through and rewatch this entire meeting if I wanted to, but I could be a little more efficient with that. And instead of rewatching the entire recording, I can use Copilot to start to do some things to scrutinize what happened in that meeting so that I can quickly catch up without having to watch the whole meeting. Now, for the purposes of my demo today, I went ahead and pre-hydrated a lot of this just so we didn't have to sit here and take time and watch Copilot reason over it, and I'm guaranteed that it already worked. So my first prompt for Copilot was to summarize this meeting. As you can see, Copilot gave me a list of key topics in a bulleted list, and also you'll notice that it gave me citations on where it pulled each of these items. So if I need to dig in, or I'm curious about something that happened, some more details about one of these bullets, I can dig in. I could go watch the transcript to hear the actual discussion there. And then as I kept going, I was iterating on that initial prompt. So now I want to know more about action items. So I asked Copilot to list the action items, and it came up with 3 of those. And again, I've got my citations, and I've even got call outs for where it is in the recording if I want to go check that out. If, let's say, I wasn't super familiar with the people in this meeting, I could ask Copilot to tell me more about the participants. So in this particular prompt, I asked Copilot to create a table of the participants and their roles, and it did that in a nice table format for me. And then to really get to the heart of the matter, I wanted to know more about what decisions actually came out of this meeting. So you'll see it gave me a bulleted list of decisions that came out of the meeting that I could dig further into, either through the recording or use Copilot to do that. And so I wanted to hear more about that decision to delay the launch, because that seems like something that's pretty important, pretty impactful for me. So Copilot came back and said, it was not an easy decision. There was some debate about it, but in the end, there was a compromise, and everybody agreed that delaying the launch was the right idea. So in terms of personal productivity, I just saved a bunch of time on a meeting that I missed, or had a conflict, or whatever reason, by using Copilot to catch up. So improving my personal productivity there. So jumping over to Outlook for my next demo, I want to stick with the same concept of using Copilot to summarize information and help me catch up quickly by looking at Copilot and how it can be used in Outlook. So again, sort of a similar scenario. Let's say I've been gone for a week or so, and I've got a bunch of email in my inbox that I'd like to quickly process. So instead of taking hours or days to dig out of an email hole, I can do it much more quickly. So for demo purposes, I've got a email thread here. It's about 10 messages long. And this one's not that bad, but you can imagine in the real world, we've all experienced it, where you're gone for a couple of days. You might have dozens of email threads like this that are 2-3 times as long as this. So using Copilot to help you get on top of those things would be a real time saver. So if I look over here in my viewing pane, you'll see I've got a summary by Copilot function up here at the top. I'm going to go ahead and click that. I'm going to make sure it's using Copilot. And once again, I kind of pre-hydrated this so it was already ready for us. But you can see up here in the Copilot box that I now have, instead of having to read through 10 messages of email, I've now got 5 statements that help summarize this thread. Again, you'll notice that I've got those call outs where I could go dig a little bit deeper into one of these statements. If I wanted more details, I could go to those citations if I wanted to. So a couple of quick tips there in terms of using Copilot for the summary function. Now, don't have time to go into every place where you can use Copilot to summarize today, but you'll also find that the same functionality in Teams chats, Teams channels. All those conversations are getting the ability to allow you to summarize quickly large pieces of information. Now, shifting gears a bit, but I'm going to stay in Outlook. The other function that Copilot's very good at these days is helping you to create content, especially to help you get beyond sort of the challenge of the blank page and help you set up a draft, an initial draft of an email or a document or anything like that. So I want to show you a quick example of how I use Copilot sometimes to help me write my first draft of an email. And you'll see if I've opened up my new email here, I'm going to click this draft with Copilot dialog there, and I've already got a prompt ready to go. And this is something that I do fairly regularly, and that is introduce myself to a customer. So I have a prompt here that is basically asking Copilot to draft an email to a customer, introduce myself, and recommend we start meeting on a regular basis to discuss a project. I'm going to go ahead and let it turn on that for a second. And you can see it very quickly came out with a first draft of an email. Now, one of the concepts in Copilot that's important to know is that we think of this product as literally your Copilot. It is not an autopilot doing work for you, but it is there to help you. So in that sense, I'm going to look at this as a very first draft. And now it's up to me to go through and either use Copilot to help me, hone that draft or do it manually myself. You'll see down here, Copilot's asking to help some more if I wanted to. So it's going to say, do you want to keep this draft? We could retry using the same prompt, make it shorter, make it longer, change our tone. Let's just say I'm going to ask Copilot to make it shorter. And you see there it did it. Now, me as kind of the pilot in charge, I'm like, okay, that doesn't look quite as good. I'm going to go back. I like the first one better. I'll go ahead and keep that. And then you can see I can now change this if I want. Let's say, okay, I don't want a Friday meeting, so I'm going to take that option out. And so I can now turn this into a draft that's ready to go to a customer. So using Copilot to create content, help you draft emails, sort of gets you past that blank page problem and gets you out of a lot of the wordsmithing that a lot of us do on a daily basis. So I'm going to jump applications here quickly to show you another example of using Copilot to help you create content. And I've got a demo button. I've got a demo document here called the product specifications for the ReliCloud Thunderbolt e-bike. And in my scenario here, let's say I'm a manager of a team that's developing this new product, and I need to create quickly a PowerPoint presentation that can summarize all of this information for my management. I don't want to just send this product spec sheet to my management. I'm going to have to run a meeting where I actually explain what we've been doing and what my team's been doing with this product. So I want to turn this into a PowerPoint deck. So if I pull PowerPoint over here, you'll see that I can start using Copilot right here in PowerPoint, and I'm going to use that Word document to help me create a presentation. And as you can see already, it's trying to help. So it wants to know, do I want to create a presentation? Well, yes, I do. And what's it about? Well, I'm going to go ahead and reference a file. And you can see I've got my Thunderbolt specifications file right here. I'm going to click that. And then it's going to go through a few steps to help me create this presentation. Now, this can sometimes take a few minutes. So in the interest of time, what I did was kind of create one of these beforehand so we can maybe take a look at it. And of course, it's not coming over now. But what you see, what it did first was it basically created an outline for my Word document so that I could see that, those topics were correct. It was asking me there if I wanted to change that at all. So I would have had the opportunity there to, change any of the topics or anything like that. And I could have gone ahead and made some adjustments to the creation process there before it got going. And now it's going through and putting together my slides. And as you can see, we've got some slides ready to go. And now we can say, okay, this is good enough first draft. If I say keep it, I can then go into my normal slide editor and I can start doing the honing and the developing of this deck to make it actually something that I'm ready to put in front of my leaders. So once again, a great way to get past the blank slate problem and a great way to get started quickly creating content. So one last thing before we switch back to the slides, in Microsoft, we like to say that we use our own products. Sometimes internally we say we have to eat our own dog food or we have to drink our own champagne, whichever of those you like better. And really quickly, I just wanted to pull this over here and show you my Teams client and how I used Copilot to actually prepare for this presentation. So I went into my Teams and I went into my Copilot app here, and I just started a quick prompt here and said, create me an outline for a 25-minute presentation regarding Microsoft 365 Copilot and how it can improve productivity. And once again, it gave me an okay little outline here. And what I did here then is I used a new feature called Pages. And I said, edit in Pages. And over here on the right side of my screen is my page. And what this basically does is gives me a collaboration canvas on which I can now hone that and turn it into an outline and turn it into something that I've been reading off of for the last few minutes during this presentation. So helping me in my own productivity save time and do more and do it more quickly with Copilot. Go ahead and stop sharing there. Nick, I don't know if you want to share the slides back out, but go ahead.
Yeah, give me 1 second. I'll grab them.
Thank you.
And I'll jump back to your section.
Perfect. So last thing before I think I pass it over to Mark, the last thing that I was going to talk about here is kind of making this a little bit more real for you healthcare folks on the phone. And I wanted to just show you quickly a scenario that kind of involves a couple of things that I just showed. So meeting summaries, creating content, and things like that. And I think Nick is going to talk more about our scenario library in a few minutes.
Yeah.
But this is just an example of how a healthcare organization could run. It's called a departmental meeting, but what I've seen with my customers is using something similar like this for things like multidisciplinary rounds or readiness huddles, those types of things. Really infusing technology and then Copilot into those things to make them more efficient. So in this little flow, you see Copilot being used in various places to do pre-meeting preparation, reminders, and then using it in meetings to help capture notes and capture go-dos. I've seen some of my healthcare customers really go deep on the Teams meeting part and add in things like planners and work trackers and SharePoint lists, over which you can then use Copilot to glean insights and raise efficiencies. So a lot of potential here for personal productivity using Copilot. And having said that, I'm going to close my productivity part, and I think I'm passing it over to Mark to talk a little bit more about agents.
Thanks, Andy. Some great examples of just how individuals can use Copilot in the day-to-day and just make that next task a little easier, a little faster. Hopefully stuff that folks can really take and use immediately outside of this meeting. So our next section, we are going to talk about agents. And not long ago, it was an internal Microsoft town hall, I believe, and our CEO was on, and he began to talk about this agentic experience that is coming within Copilot. And I sat there and I thought, what in the world did he just say? So I kind of get the concept of an agent, let's say in the insurance industry, I can call my insurance agent and they'll help me through some of the complexities that might be going on around whatever the insurance issue might be. From a technology perspective, if we think about an agent, let's apply that. So we want something that is going to help us with a certain situation, a certain scenario, but now we're going to apply this AI concept to it. So now I can have what's called a Copilot agent to help me with maybe something that I do every single day. I can start to talk about things being agentic as we get more agents to help us with more scenarios. I can then extrapolate that further and into this agentic ecosystem type of thought process where, wow, I've got a lot of agents that can help me. In fact, I just spent the last couple of days with a customer planning for this like top level agent that is going to leverage multiple other sub-level agents and kind of orchestrate so that when one person comes in to ask for some type of help, be it HR, IT, benefits, whatever it might be, it can call these other things and get the responses back. And that's kind of the thinking that starts to build from this agentic world that we're kind of forecasting is coming into place. So let's start with a little bit of a video before we jump in too much deeper. So as I play this, hopefully the sound will come through for everyone. All right, SharePoint agents. Really one kind of agent, but a great entry point into how to benefit from the power of what these agents can do to help you. So a SharePoint agent, usually that's going to be something that has to do with either maybe a team, a project, a department. We'll show that in just a minute. How do I do that? Is it really one click? Can I just make this? The answer is yes, you can. So from an IT perspective, do we have IT controls around this? Yes, we do. One of the beauties of this is it already will leverage the security controls and governance that's in place for SharePoint. So we don't have to create new levels of governance. We don't have these huge numbers of new risks that get associated to it. We're following what's already in place from an IT perspective. IT is looking at this. It's relatively new, so we do get some questions of, how do we support this? What is the user experience going to be? Those aspects. So it may or may not be enabled right out of the gate in your organization. But if it's not, it's probably because IT is doing their due diligence. And if this interests you, I'm going to recommend get a hold of your IT folks, offer to be, a proof of concept or a pilot area to try some of this out. But what are these agents? So really two types. So declarative agents, these are the ones that we're going to build that kind of right out of that Microsoft 365 Copilot Foundation. These are the things you use in Microsoft 365 today. They're a lot easier to build. From an options perspective, we can go from this simple, I can go no click, nice little GUI interface. It's not over the top, elegant, or advanced, but it can be very impactful right out of the gate. All the way through, I can start to customize that, or I can get all the way up to like, okay, I need the IT pro code type developers to really help me do something. Going forward from that, we can even get into more custom type engine agents where we're bringing in different large language models and other types of AI infrastructure behind the scenes and leverage that as we build out these agents. So we can get far more advanced than this, but let's start out with SharePoint and how we can even tailor that to help us with our scenarios. So with that, I'm going to flip over and share my screen, and let's just do this for real. So I'm here, I'm working in a browser. So I don't have to have a Teams client. We think about a lot of our frontline workforce, they're very mobile. Maybe they don't have a dedicated workspace. I can do this from a phone. I could do this from a tablet. I can do this on shared workstations or dedicated workstations. It's just there. I'm working here within Teams, and I'm in my frontline operations channel. So to set this up, we're going to act like we are the unit inventory managers in a hospital. So we'll just assume we've got a multi-floor hospital. We need to make sure we've got the right inventory on each of our units to provide for our patient care. So as we do this, we're just kind of working together within our channel of a team. Little Teams 101, but when you get a team, you get a Files tab. That Files tab is linked to the SharePoint that is created when the team is created, the full SharePoint site. So we'll see in here, I'm managing my inventory through each floor in spreadsheets. Now, spreadsheets are a great thing. I would also recommend maybe talk to your Microsoft team. There might be additional ways that we could help you streamline this beyond spreadsheets. But for our presentation purposes today, we've got this, and our channel is also a folder within our SharePoint. So let's go open this up in SharePoint. And so we see there's frontline operations, same name as my channel. Up here in the top, I have a little Copilot icon. And just like the video promised, I have an agent already associated with my SharePoint site. This one, production department, that is the same name as my team, which is the same name as my SharePoint site. But now I want something specifically to help me with my inventory process and work with my team. So me as the manager, I need to make sure we've got right inventory levels. We have to order things. Maybe I need to share inventories because one area is low and we don't have a stock back in the warehouse for that. So now let's go. We're just going to create an agent to help us with this so I don't have to check my spreadsheets every single day. So I have a couple ways. One, create an agent right there for me. I also have the 3 dots next to this existing agent. That did not allow me to create the agent that I thought that would. Apologies. So we'll just go ahead with this one. When I practiced earlier, it was in 2 spots. So now this one, it says frontline operations. That's just the name of our channel. And I could just literally hit that create agent button, open agent, and I can start. 1 click. So now let's come in and let's change this up just a little bit to be a little bit more reflective of what we want. So we're going to call this the unit inventory agent. And then I can add a description down here if I want to. Just like the video showed, my sources. Now, this could be literally, I could select just those spreadsheet files if this is a folder with a lot of other things and I only want to focus on that. I can use my folder, my SharePoint site. I can add other document libraries, folders, or files as well to this for the information that my agent will be what we call grounded on, meaning this is the core set of information that I want it to reason against for my scenario. So remember, this agent is for this situation. So now, one thing that is not here yet in my tenant, probably not in yours either, is add advanced customization. Right now, when I click that button, it's coming soon. So that will be coming. But let's take a look here for a moment at the behaviors. And so you'll notice when I start my agent, it has some verbiage that's here. Also a couple of starter prompts. So now let's just, for demonstration purposes, we'll only just change one. And instead of creating FAQs, I'm going to add in a prompt here. We probably don't want the hyphen at the beginning of this. And so we've got that. I can actually just test it right here on the fly. But instead, I'm going to just trust that this is going to work. I'll hit save. All right. Now, notice unit inventory. So I have that right there. I can copy a link to it. I can share it out. So when I make something, it's not necessarily just available to everyone else. So I might want to share it, use it in a couple of ways. But then let's take a look at, we've got it here, and my starter prompt that I put in there, I can just click that one. I don't have to think about typing this each time that I come in here. But what I asked it to do is use any spreadsheet file in here that has inventory in its name. Tell me the current quantities of items by floor. So we'll go through, it's going to think about this for a moment, and notice it's already generating content there as it kind of goes through that. So I very quickly get by floor my list of items. So wow, this is really helpful. So now I can do a few more detailed things instead of just a high level thing, because maybe I've got a lot of floors or a lot of items on those floors. It could start to really get unwieldy in what that response would be. So I can narrow that down. So evaluate my inventory spreadsheets. Which floor has the lowest inventory? I did QTY because that's the column name in my little template inventory spreadsheet, but so I wanted it to find it. So we need to be a little bit specific as we're doing this, and we call it prompt engineering. We want to give it the right prompt with the right set of context. So let's go check this out. So yesterday, I would have had to open up each one of these inventory spreadsheets and check and look at, is this low or not? And then know the lowest, I might have had to link those things, copy and paste them together and create some charts, all those things. Now, within a couple of seconds, I can ask Copilot, oh, based on this, floor 6 has the lowest. Now, yeah, I set up floor 6 to have 0 for the purposes of this, but see how quickly that just was able to go in, allow me to ask questions of it, reason over all this set of information, and give me the detailed information I need back quickly to be able to manage this. So then, let's see. Maybe I want to evaluate this and say, who else might be able to help me with getting that in there? So let's evaluate that inventory from the other floors besides 6. And we've got a reorder thing in there, so I kind of have something to benchmark it against. And which floors have more than the reorder that I might be able to use? AKA, I'm going to borrow from Peter to pay Paul to make sure that we've got the right inventory levels on our unit for the day so that we can do the patient care that we really need to. So now this one, oh, not the greatest example because it just kind of goes through and says, oh, I'm getting a whole big report from all those types of things. So let's just say which floor has that instead. And I'll ask it that. So this is how we start to learn what's going to work well as I ask these questions against my scenario or not. And starts to give me a few different things. So then, all right, now let's take and say, oh, we like this. All right, but we want to use it in a couple of different areas. So now if I come back and I click the three dots, let's say I'm going to copy a link for Teams. And if I go back into Teams and go to my chat, I've got my group chat that I do this back and forth. And I can say, hey everyone, just started this new agent that will help us manage inventory. And then copy my link. Now my link is copied. The joys of the live demo. There we go. So now this comes across and I'll just share that. And notice I have the ability to add this right into my chat. So now this can become part of my group chat with the other folks that are responsible for managing the inventory. We can all use it very quickly. Notice it has the same welcome text, the same intro prompts that are out here. And then let's see, let's ask it a question. We'll see if it'll work well over here if my prompts are happy. And so we just ask the inventory. It'll work better if I actually at mention. So I do at and I start typing the name of it. So now I can have this conversation with unit inventory and ask it my question. So now I don't actually have to go back to the SharePoint site to use this agent that I've just created. And it'll go through, reason over it, and answer my questions. Give it 1 second. There we go. So now I asked it to go into the tab, find the cost of each item, tell me the total cost of all items that need to be reordered. So that's comparing that. So there's that. The total cost of all items that need to be reordered, 261. And then if I come back over, like, let's say even on Teams, and I tried this where I can actually even take that same agent and I could share it just in a post, but it's not ready for being part of a channel chat yet to add it to that chat like I could to the group chat. But I could even just add it as a tab here where I add a website. And let's say, give my tab a name, post my URL. Get my URL back. I was already copying, pasting too many things. So while I cannot add it directly to the chat as part of my channel, I can bring up my inventory agent right here so that I can, from my team's channel with that group, begin using it. I can also go back to SharePoint. And let's say I want to make it, maybe this is an intranet site or a department site where I would want this to be out there so I can share it in such a way that I can also put it on my homepage. So this will be a very fast SharePoint homepage editing tutorial. So you can work with your Microsoft Teams to do this in a little bit more structured fashion to learn about it. But let's say I just want to add it in here. And I'm just going to use the embed function. And so now I just added my Copilot agent right to my SharePoint site. So I'm able to then leverage this in a number of different ways to really make sure that we're getting the most value back from this. So if we kind of extrapolate this idea a little bit, I'm able to, one, just create it and use it. I can kind of keep those key prompts in there. Soon you'll be able to edit it. Then I can leverage it in a lot of different modalities. I can do it from my Teams chat. I can have a tab in my Teams channel, put it in my SharePoint site from my document library, like where we started, and really make sure, one, it's just kind of surfaced and available, and then we're getting that value back from it for whatever that process might be. All right, I saw a few questions come across in the chat. Did we get any that we need to talk about here on the call?
A couple have gotten answered, and I'll hit a couple when we transfer over. There
Okay.
was yeah, I'm just kind of looking. Yeah, we got a couple. When you come off, let's do some housekeeping. We'll clear off a few before I go to my advanced use cases.
Sounds good. So Nick, do you want to bring the PowerPoint back up?
Yeah. I'm seeing the little, PowerPoint Wi-Fi icon of PowerPoint Live hydrating in. And let me jump to your section for you. All right, I'm gonna take you right to the product demo slide.
Outstanding.
All right. And you want to
for
click?
that.
Yep, you got it. Awesome.
Okay. So as we think about this, so we just saw agents in SharePoint. So I was able to very quickly build this other tool that I kind of referenced as we went through that demo, Copilot Studio. So Copilot Studio itself is available, will become available so you can modify those agents in SharePoint as well. So that's where you can get into customization, something to explore. It's actually pretty easy to modify an agent. So let's say one of these that you just made from a SharePoint site. That file will be a file that's like called .agent. So whatever you named it, .agent will be a file there in whatever folder you were in when you created the agent in SharePoint. So let's say you want to go in, play around with it in Copilot Studio, and you do something, you're like, oh, that was bad. One, you could back things out from Copilot Studio, but two, if you get it so bad that it's just easier to start over, it's literally delete that file. It's gone. One click, you're back in action with a brand new fresh agent. Try again. So don't be afraid like you're going to break something here, because honestly, you're not. You may change the experience if others are using it, but something very quickly that you can go in and fix that. So Copilot Studio as well. Right now, primarily focused on knowledge-only agents, meaning just like we just did, it's using existing knowledge. So that existing knowledge was our spreadsheets. Could be Word documents, PowerPoints, PDFs, other types of media. Can point out to lots of different types of media. Copilot Studio actually allows you to connect up into even more than just what's in Microsoft 365. Go beyond that into other systems. As we get further to the right on this chart, more knowledge is required to be able to build. You can do more advanced functions, including, pull in HR information, service desk information, those types of things. We'll explore that further in future sessions, but want to just get folks kind of level set with these agents in SharePoint. They can be very helpful immediately today. So as we do this more, we'll also be able to find agents. So these agents, now I'm the one that's sharing it. We start building, or IT's building, or we're using ones that Microsoft has built that are more enterprise focused. We'll be able to find those directly from our Copilot chat and then use them, be it from Copilot or even within applications as well. This has also mentioned agents quite a bit, and agents are something that is, or I'm sorry, the actions have also been mentioned in some of the slides that have been up, and something that is coming. So in the previous slide, we talked about knowledge only. These actions that are coming will actually allow you then to make that agent take those actions automatically without you even having to tell it to go do it. It can just do it. I threw this in here just so that we could have this customer success stories link that is there. If we go there, and maybe I'll just quickly share my screen again, just to kind of show where this will take you, and you can explore this further, is we have a customer story site. And from there, this one, I've actually have it filtered to some healthcare stories that are already published. If your org is not out here, we would love to work with you on something that's going to be really cool and publish and tell the world about it so they can benefit from it. Some great stuff. But on this same site, we can go through other types of industries and examples that are on here. I'm scrolling all the way back to the top because I've got quite a few different types of ideas and areas that I can explore within here so that I can really start to understand how this is being used across different areas, how that might apply back to me, and some really exciting stuff. And so, Nick, sorry, I'm going to make you jump back into the PowerPoint again.
No problem. I think for the first 20 years of my career, I was the guy who sat at the podium and hit the advance button on next slide, when my manager had a deck. So I'm happy to do that for you, Mark. If we were in person, I'd be getting the brand of bottled water that you prefer, but this helps me with enough. Okay, let's see. I'm going to jump back to the customer resources slide.
Okay. And I will just jump this forward as Dick is about to take over, but just wanted to show we've got a few other resources that'll be here in the deck as we provide it out to everyone for how, like, we get to those publishing, and even some things about and ideas about how to think about redefining business process and different functions with agents, as well as quite a few of the links that are out there and available to you. If you're quick with your phone, you can grab that QR code and get to some of that as well.
I made a note too. When we're done, we're going to do a debrief after the session too. So I'll capture all these in like a single, list of resources that were shared along with the deck, and we'll get that out. I always hate like having to hunt through slides after a session or something when we go through something like this. All right, Mark, thanks so much. I'm gonna actually, will you stay? I'm gonna keep you on screen for a second, and let's hit a couple of the questions that came up, and then this is also going to be kind of a call for follow-up as well too, because I know I'm going to get very quickly out over my skis, to use a Minnesota skiing analogy on this. But there's a question that came up about the BAA agreement compliance within HIPAA for Copilot Chat, and both Microsoft 365 Copilot and Copilot Chat now support enterprise data protection beyond commercial data protection, as long as users signed in with their Entra ID. So if they're in that Microsoft 365 subscription, and this is actually a relatively new thing, so I'm going to take this for follow-up and just double check it. And Andy and Mark, I want you to keep me honest here because you've got more experience in this space. But underneath the list of in-scope services that we now have for BAA compliance, both of those offerings are listed in there.
Yeah.
So I am pretty sure that it is covered underneath the associate agreements within HIPAA, but I want to just kind of take that for follow-up and just kind of confirm it. Anything you would add to that, Mark? I was frantically binging. If you're going to Google something, Google it with Bing while you were going through the demos to double check this, and I believe that's correct.
One thing Microsoft is very good about is as these products become generally available, they need to be compliant with HIPAA, SOX, GDPR, pick an acronym for a regulatory thing that we have to be compliant with. But if there's ever a question, because this is critical for your organization and we understand that, reach out to your Microsoft account team. We can get anybody on the phone to make sure we are giving you very solid information on any of this. So yes, this is a good resource to validate it, Nick, but also absolutely always work with your account team, and we'll make sure that we're keeping your organization protected. That is a top goal of anybody from Microsoft.
Great, thanks. I dropped my email into the chat as well too. So if you can't find your account team, or if you got this, what's typically happens is someone forwarded you this invite and they're the person who has the relationship with the account manager. Ping one of us and we can track that group down and find it for you. A couple other things, then I'll jump over to if you want to look at the comment Bryce dropped in, Mark, about starter prompts, and I'll answer a couple of these while you're doing that. Gina had shared, so she's one of our technology specialists that joined us for a quick second. She had mentioned that our Copilot starter kits are a really good place to start. Let me go find the, hold on, wait a second. She mentioned that the starter kits that we have for Copilot are a really good resource. There it is. For managing agents there, sorry, this is where I wanted to get. So she dropped this link into chat as well too. So up on adoption.microsoft.com, we've got supplementary resources where we try to aggregate some of the technical articles that are in the documentation. And the one I wanted to call your attention to is this one right here, this Copilot Chat and Agent IT Setup and Controls Guide. It's actually a PowerPoint presentation, but it's meant to kind of give you just a very high level summary of like, let me skip through here. Where the heck are all the controls for all these different agents? So there's good news and bad news. The good news is there's a control for just about everything you can do. The bad news is they're in like 4 different admin centers inside of Microsoft 365. So what's happening under the covers is we're using elements of the Power Platform to drive some of the agentic functionality, especially with the actions that agents can take. So when we're sending these, I'm trying to find the specific slide, when we send these calls back to the apps to take an action, like when Andy showed us creating the new PowerPoint slide, here it is. Okay. We're actually using the Power Platform underneath the covers to talk to those endpoints. So within the Teams Admin Center and within the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, you can go in and determine which agents are available and how they show up in the interface. If you want to have them pinned, for example, inside of chat, inside of Microsoft Teams. In the Power Platform Admin Center is where you go in and create billing plans if your users are not fully licensed for Copilot for Microsoft 365. So they're not using the $30 a month full license, and instead are just enabled for the free Copilot chat, but you want them to use agents, then that's when we do that metered billing that Andy talked about, and those billing plans are set up inside of the Power Platform and Admin Center. The other 2 things that are mentioned here are underneath Purview and underneath SharePoint. I can also go in and put additional controls over who can see what data. There's nothing really new with that with Copilot. It's the same sort of data governance controls we've had already, things like sensitivity labels and compliance policies. But just like 5 years ago, there is no better network assessment tool released than Microsoft Teams, right? It uncovered every gap in an organization's network where they had like an old router or something that was slowing down packets. Well, the same thing's happening with Copilot. It's like the new Delve. It's uncovering that security by obscurity technical debt that some of your users may have and not realize, oh shoot, I put all that stuff out on a SharePoint site, shared it to everybody, totally forgot about it. That was 3 years ago, and Copilot found it today. So where these are, and so I'm going to take this for follow-up too, so we can do a deeper dive into admin controls if that's of interest. I'll bring up a survey at the end. But underneath the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, under Copilot, under Settings, this is where I can go in and manage some high-level controls for Copilot, like whether or not it's pinned. But like if I want to go into consumption, you'll notice it says, okay, to take your next step, you're going to jump over to the Power Platform billing configuration. And so you go to the Power Platform Admin Center, then that's where I would go in and set up a billing plan for Copilot under here and do the additional sort of administration of how these Copilot actions take place. Then the other place inside the main Admin Center is underneath integrated apps. So the way that Microsoft 365 kind of thinks of agents is that they're an app that's enabled for Microsoft Teams. because it's be surfacing inside of Teams chat. And so this is where I can go in and manage their party apps. I can also, like if I go into Copilot Studio and build a custom app, I can upload that manifest if I move it across different tenants, or you do something in like the Teams toolkit for Visual Studio Code. So that guide that I brought up first, the PowerPoint deck, like actually gives a nice job of kind of going through all of those. There's also a Microsoft learning pathway that steps through these admin controls. I did find it a little bit frustrating though, because I've got a Microsoft 365 background, and suddenly I had to like hop over, to a couple other admin centers. So Microsoft always prioritizes the UI experience for users and kind of figures that sysadmins are going to be able to navigate through things on their own. That's the short answer to that. Okay, let me stop. I got a frog in my throat, or I'm really emotional about admin centers. Did you have a chance to look at that starter prompt question from Bryce, Mark?
Yes, and if I was reading that right, what he did, and it's actually stroke of brilliance, is kind of sequence the first couple of prompts to get the agent kind of geared towards the information. So I'm hoping I read that right, Bryce, and something where think about what they're doing. And as I went through, some of my prompts didn't actually work. I kind of glossed over it. Hopefully nobody actually noticed, but you probably did. Is, I jumped into prompts that were much later in my practice session from yesterday. And when I did this before, I had already kind of done some of those things that it looks like Bryce has what had actually sequenced in his, and it worked much better. So highly recommended to go through and do that.
Thanks, bud. And I also want to correct, I misspoke in the chat earlier. Gina corrected me. If you have the Copilot license, you can actually build agents. So you don't need the full Microsoft 365 Copilot Studio license to create an agent. However, you won't be able to run it unless you either have that license or have the billing plan set up for messages. So I think I might be old mindset at Microsoft. I'm used to you have to have a premium license to actually make something. But Gina confirmed, nope, you can actually go out and do it in Copilot chat, and it was in that list of announcements last week. So remember what I said, I reserve the right to be smarter tomorrow than I am today. So I'm going to make a transition now. We'll take just kind of keep an eye on time. I might not give you a feast of information as much as kind of show you the buffet and what there is to eat. I want to show you a couple of advanced use cases, and specifically an agent that's going to reason over some research data, and also where I can go to find out some additional scenarios that are available and out there. So Andy referenced this concept of this scenario library that we have. And the intent is if I'm in like a business analyst or business liaison role, and I'm working with someone out in the clinics, in research, on the manufacturing floor, and they're looking for ways that they could use AI to improve operations and improve business. The way that we think of it, because the skill set and capabilities are still relatively new, most people first understand something when it applies immediately to them in a productivity mindset. If you think of things like telecommunications or, microcomputer technology, the first wave that took over for that was replacing typewriters, right? Because that was a very simple thing for basic productivity. And that's always happened, that people kind of use that personal productivity first, then team, and then organizational transformation. So we have this scenario library that has a lot of these day in the life use cases that give examples of this is how I would use the specific capabilities or skills inside Microsoft 365 Copilot to achieve a particular business outcome. For each one of these here, let's jump out there and find it really quick. And I lost my bookmark, but I'll just bing it. So Copilot scenario library. The other Microsoft people are like, oh, never search for something in a demo unless you know exactly what you're going to find. Okay, so if I go out to the scenario library, and I'm going to drop this into our session chat as well, if you want to play along with me. We have these different use cases organized by industry and by role. And so if I scroll down a little bit, the roles are grouped into functional areas like finance or HR. And industry is grouped into about the top 10 commercial industries that are out there, and then there's one for education as well, too. We just added nonprofits. I forgot we did that. So this is a lot of things like community engagement and grant management. Then for each one of these, so here let's go into healthcare. Now this is focused on Microsoft 365 Copilot. So the assumption is the primary thing it's going to reason over is Microsoft 365 data, either things that are in the Microsoft graph. In this context, graph is a mathematical term for the special database that holds all the logs and signals of the actions you take in Microsoft 365. So when a user posts in Microsoft Teams or likes something in Viva Engage or sends an email or downloads a SharePoint document, that creates a small signal in the graph, and then that's what Copilot reasons over to determine, what things are important to you or what's trending around you. So the use cases here are pointed at that. There is one exception. You can connect the Microsoft Graph to third-party systems, other sources like Epic, for example, and then Copilot can see that information too. And it's security trimmed based on the user principal they're logged in as when they do that. That'd be another possible deep dive if you'd like to go into it a little bit more. But I just want to call that out because I'm already getting questions from some of my customers. Like I have a clinician, or actually my own physician, said, hey, how can I use Copilot to look over x-ray images? And I'm like, it doesn't quite do that. We have other stuff in Azure AI that does, but we're really trying to scope this one specifically to Microsoft 365. If you have an imaging tool that has a database and that's available for Microsoft Graph to see, then yes, it can, but it's not something it can do. So I find myself, I don't like to do this, but dipping a tiny bit into the weeds of how things are connected when I'm talking to users. But usually if I just probe a little bit, well, what are you trying to accomplish? What are you trying to do? Then I can get a little bit better on recommending a tool. So as you're on this journey, I'm finding this explaining how AI works is a skill that I'm developing as an IT professional to take out to my users. So these are the different scenarios that we've got. We're adding a few of these all the time. So if I want to jump into one of these and look at it, let's here, for example, let's say I want to look into managing clinical trials. So there's a downloadable PowerPoint kind of day in the life. It'll also give me a summary of possible KPIs that are impacted. It's kind of nice if I show up with a business leader for that. And it'll give me kind of a step-by-step guide on how each one of those could be used. So if I jump back to my slides, I want to show you an example of what this might look like for a user who's going to do some drug research. So imagine I'm working for a pharmaceutical company. I want to ask some questions on a couple of the trials that we're considering, looking both at publicly available information as well as information that's in an R&D database that we have a license right to use. I'm going to ask some questions about that, ask Copilot to reason across for me, and then prepare a summary document that I'm going to use for a proposal. So let's jump out and we'll take a quick peek at this. And just to kind of keep me on track, and this is actually, if this is of interest, let me know. I've got a click-through version of that we can make available. But here, I've got Microsoft 365 Copilot, the chat up again. This time, it's a little bit different. An agent has been published and made available to me. So it is now going to be able to see any of the comments that I drop into chat. So as an IT admin, I've got the ability to say, hey, make an agent always available, or make it discrete so the user can pick if they want to interact just with that agent. In this case, this is one that's always available. And so if my user goes in and asks a question, so she's going to ask Copilot to compile some research on immunotherapy for lung cancer. So if we zoom in and see what she's asked, using Contoso research, I don't want to mention the actual third parties we've got available yet because that's in flux. So we're going to pretend Contoso, Microsoft's typical fictional company, is the R&D aggregator that we're using. And it comes back to the response. Make it a list of the different articles that have been recently published, a summary of each one. And Mark called this out earlier, and I just want to mention it again. Every time you get a response in Copilot, it always includes a citation and tells you where it got the source of that particular response. That's a hyperlink and clickable, so I can jump out to it. So I'm always coaching my users as well. Hey, it's Copilot, not Pilot. It flies alongside you. So make sure that you're checking its work. Okay, that looks good. I'm going to ask it to go ahead and take those studies that it came back with and categorize them by efficacy and side effect. So I'm essentially taking that same information and now applying some formatting to it, asking Copilot to go over and reason across it. So it came back down, it's grouped them into those three categories. That looks good. I'll ask it now to go ahead and cross-reference those with the trials that are currently underway. So now what's happening is I've got a second system connected to the Microsoft Graph. So essentially, think of it as I've got sort of two databases, for want of a simpler term, that the Microsoft 365 Graph can see and query from or read only, and that makes them available to Copilot. So one of those is a licensed third-party research aggregator. The second one is a clinical trial management tool that my organization is using. And I'm going to say, hey, Copilot, I want you to reason across both of those, match up the research results you just came back with trials that we have underway, and give me a summary of both of those put together. And so it does that response. Okay, let's cross-reference those studies with trials that are currently going on, and it gives me a summary of those, and then I can go out and links to see each one of those that are available. If I want to ask an additional question here, I'm going to ask it to make a recommendation on how I might collaborate with some of my peers. It'll do that. I'm going to ask it to look at trends. I'm going to go with the next. These kind of quick. So you get the sense. I can ask research-specific examples, but I want to show you one last example here. Draft a grant application based on our findings on the efficacy of immunotherapy acanthosa research. There's a great solution here and a small limitation. I'm going to call out both of those. So right now I'm in chat in Copilot, and that's allowing me to reason across all of Microsoft 365. And I ask it to build a grant summary for me. Notice though it's still here in chat. So right now, today, and this is on our roadmap, we don't have it yet, but today I have to actually manually copy this and then jump over to Microsoft Word, and then I can paste it in the actual document. So we don't have this yet. So today, if I'm working with Copilot inside of one of the apps that reasons over the document that's opened in that app, one of the things we've announced for the first half of this year is we'll have the ability to reason across all the Microsoft Graph here. I can actually ask it to do that by putting in a / or clicking the add more content and going out and specifically pulling in another file or external link. But it's a little bit cleaner if we kind of let Copilot go across it by itself. So that's one of the reasons we're being a little bit slow on that is when we're making these calls back to the applications, they're creating content. That's a much more deliberate action than task retrieval or information retrieval and gathering content. So we want to make sure that that's done correctly and we don't have hallucinations that happen there. So if this is of interest, that's an area that we can go into a deeper dive in next month's or one of the following sessions. But I just wanted to call that out as a resource that Microsoft Copilot Scenario Library is just a great resource for kind of going in a little bit deeper into some of these use cases. Again, they tend to be very anchored in productivity-centered use cases for Microsoft 365, but I find they're really great conversation starters for kind of AI strategy all up to if you're working with organizations kind of exploring that. Let's see, for next, just kind of looking at time. Andy, do you want to, we talked about doing adoption and measurement and roadmap, but I want to make sure that we honor ending here in about 5 minutes. So we can save a couple of those, or we can cover a couple things high level. How do you guys want to hit it?
So Andy and I had a bit of a side chat while you were doing your presentation, and thought maybe it's best to do a wrap, and we'll save some things for the next time.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Let's save a couple. I'll take us then to the end and sort of close us out. Let me tease a couple of things that are going to be coming next month in February. So next month, we're going to hear from the amazing Mr. Morris. He'll talk a little bit more about kind of how we see the maturity model of the Copilot journey on adoption. So beginning with productivity, moving into business processes, and then to organizational transformation. And he'll take us through examples of some of the resources we have on adoption.microsoft.com, like creating a champions community or an AI center of excellence. Mark will take us deeper next month into measurement. So we have the usage reports that are built into the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. We also have a variety of dashboards enabled, as well as a custom Power BI report that allows me to measure Copilot usage, match it up to things like business outcomes, or compare different groups of users or cohorts with each other, so we can get the sense of the impact Copilot has across the organization and how people are benefiting from it. One of the reasons this is so important is Copilot is a relatively higher priced license than typical add-ons are from Microsoft. So we get a lot of questions from business leaders wanting to ensure that their organization is getting business value out of it. So there's some great ways you can align sort of your metrics, KPIs, and usage to pull all of those together, and even some built-in reports that work really well for leadership. Then finally, I'll pop up next month and go a little bit deeper, but I want to tease you with something now, and I'll include these links in the follow-up, is just our roadmap and keeping up with changes in Copilot. So I decided for myself, like my next career, I'm going to be a Latin teacher, you know, the Latin language, some body of knowledge that doesn't change, right? Like things do in the cloud. But where you can find more information, the most authoritative resource that you've got is the message center for your tenant. So that'll let you know when things are actually live in your environment. The second is we just turned this on in December. We just created an article called Copilot Release Notes, and it documents every month the specific features and skills that have been updated. So just a nice, hey, what's new and what's generally available that you can go in and see. The next thing is the Microsoft 365 roadmap. That's the same as it's been for the last 5 years, except you can filter on Copilot and Copilot Chat. I really like this one, this aka.ms / what's new Copilot. That's a deck. Let me show you what it looks like. So it gives you things in a PowerPoint summary that are also up on the roadmap. And so I like this as just kind of a quick, nice summary. And I've seen some of my customers use this in their Scrum meetings to kind of quickly review changes in the tenant, and then you'll prioritize, okay, we got to, that one just released, Nick, I'd like you to dive in a little bit deeper. And then the last two, a little bit softer, are our blog and the Copilot YouTube channel, where we have kind of more general, softer announcements, and also updates on sort of business value and examples of how the organizations have used Copilot and the benefit that it's given them. So last thing for today, and Mark just dropped this link in as well. We'd love to get your feedback on this session. We like to do this monthly. We like to curate it so it's healthcare focused. And when we say healthcare and life sciences, of course, there's sort of multiple groups inside of that: medical technologies, payers, providers, pharma, and others. So we like to make sure it's relevant for you as well, too. We're also trying to essentially curate all this information that's Microsoft 365 Copilot specific and pull out the nuggets that'll be most useful for you that aren't showing up somewhere else. The HIPAA compliance question earlier is a great example of that. So if you would give us your feedback, go ahead and fill that out. All the questions are optional. You can drop your email in if you'd like to. I'm also going to pull that from the registration as well. And so we're going to go through and kind of curate this deck and these resources. It'll probably be end of the day tomorrow. So we're recording this on January 23rd. So 24th is probably when we'll send that out. But again, I'll drop my email in here. If you have follow-up questions, you'll never hear from us again. You can't find your Microsoft person, nick.stillings@microsoft.com is how you can reach me. Please, questions about Microsoft 365 Copilot. I don't know how to fix your Xbox or how to get Bing Maps running on your iPhone, but actually that's okay too. We can find the right resource to answer that. Mark, Andy, I'm going to bring you back on screen for a second so we can wave to all for a triumphant goodbye. Oh, Mark, thanks for dropping yours in there as well too. And so I'm going to end the session and the recording. We'll stay on for a few more minutes, though. People have questions in chat. You can drop them in. Otherwise, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you at the next session on February 20th.
Thanks everyone. Everybody.